After a little less than 2 decades since the release of Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl, the next generation of the Stalker franchise is finally, almost, upon us. And what a wild ride it's been. The sequel of the original Stalker trilogy was cancelled, restarted, and then delayed several times as the developers at GSC Gameworld had to overcome challenges ranging from technical and intellectual property issues to an invasion of their country and the relocation of their operations to the Czech Republic. But at long last, 2023 appears to be the year that we can finally get Stalker 2 into our hands in all of its glory. So I thought now is a better time than any to cover my predictions for this long-awaited sequel. From gunplay to story and lore, here's what I expect from Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Since at its core, Stalker 2 will be an FPS game, I think the most logical starting point is the weapons that we'll have access to. And looking at some of the latest screenshots, I've noticed what I think will be a welcome change from the older Stalker titles. In the original games, the gun models had an odd visual appearance that did not match the real-life counterparts. On most assault rifles or submachine guns, the ejection ports were flipped or mirrored to the left side of the gun. I don't really know what influenced this design choice. Perhaps it made the animation simpler and easier to make. Or maybe the devs wanted the player to see the animated bolt carriers moving while firing, or the spent casings being ejected. Whatever the reason, although the guns looked unique, I guess, they weren't as realistic as they could have been. When the first teases of Stalker 2 came out, I saw that they were once again repeating this visual style, and I thought to myself, this is one more thing that the modders will have to fix. But in the most recent screenshots and videos, it looks like they've actually gone back and corrected many, if not all of these models to be as true to real-life weapons as possible. It's a subtle detail, I know, but that attention to detail is what I look for in these types of games. It also looks like we're going to get a pretty huge assortment of both NATO and Eastern Bloc weapons to choose from. Of course, we can't expect a wide variety of AK pattern weapons from the little AKS-74U Krinkovs to modern bullpup AK conversions. But there's a few new guns to the franchise you might recognize from other games or real life, such as the Springfield M1A and even the MAC-10 submachine gun. This kind of variety is what you'd expect from an Eastern European region that has large stockpiles of Soviet-era weapons, yet also has a few factions that have Western ties. But remember, Stalker is not totally based in reality, and there are some weapons that are entirely unique to the game, such as the Gauss rifle that has received one hell of a makeover. And although I don't want to see them everywhere, I do hope that Stalker 2 introduces one or two more unique and proprietary weapons that fit into the universe. Now, if your only exposure to the Stalker games has been in the form of Stalker Anomaly or Stalker Gamma, you might be expecting fairly realistic gunplay in Stalker 2. But I don't think that will be the case, at least not entirely. The original Stalker games featured gunplay and weapon damage models that I would consider to be a little bit more arcadey. Even weaker mutants would require a pretty long burst from your automatic weapons, and larger mutants or armored humans could kind of feel like bullet sponges. I think that along with the more visually realistic environments, the gunplay will be slightly more realistic as well, but don't expect to take down your enemies with one or two bullets, at least until the modders release their realism mods sometime in the post-launch period. In terms of visuals, atmosphere, and graphical fidelity, I think that we're all expecting to be treated to some serious eye candy. Nearly everything we have seen from Stalker 2 has been absolutely delightful to look at. From gorgeous fields of flowers to a gloomy, shattered, and abandoned landscape, Stalker 2 appears to be harnessing the full might of Unreal Engine 5. The environments look extremely atmospheric, and this is probably the most eroded version of the exclusion zone we've ever seen. Some buildings are nearly completely swallowed by vines and foliage, which will really help the player immerse themselves in a fractured landscape that is frozen in time. I get really heavy vibes from The Last of Us, or those eerie visuals from the book and the movie, Annihilation. I guess if there was one caveat to this, I would say that it's always wise to temper your expectations. I'm sure GSC has only showed the best of the best under the most ideal circumstances. There will undoubtedly be times where you spot a texture that's a little lower resolution than it should be, or a janky animation when a creature gets stuck on an object. You know, typical video game stuff. Not to mention that some people will have to play this game on lower settings, so keep your expectations reasonable, especially if you're running a lower end machine. Next is the multiplayer component. Yes, there is multiplayer. The original Stalker games only briefly dabbled in multiplayer, and let's just say it's not the reason why most people bought the game. And while Stalker 2 certainly has an opportunity to change that, I am not expecting much, if anything at all, from the multiplayer. First and foremost, no, I don't think it will include a co-op mode. I think every Stalker fan's dream is to have a story-rich gameplay experience they can share with their friends, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's happening this time around, or else GSC Gameworld would be shouting about that feature from every rooftop. Instead, I'm expecting a fairly basic team deathmatch arena shooter that may have a few bonuses that could carry over into single player or vice versa. They may spice it up a little bit and offer multiple game modes, kind of like how every Call of Duty has modes like Search and Destroy, Kill Confirmed, etc. But since Stalker's main claim to fame is its setting and exploration, expect the multiplayer to feel kind of like an afterthought. And finally, the story, setting, and open world. This, above all else, is what I have the highest hopes for. Yes, the visuals will be stunning, but a few key tidbits I've gathered from trailers really makes me want to believe that Stalker 2 will be amazing. First, the amount of effort put into the characters, their voice acting, and motion capture all look phenomenal. The original Stalker games were extremely difficult to produce, and as a result, some of the voice acting was either non-existent or, let's just say, not up to modern standards, even for the time. Also, when characters interacted with you, they almost always just stood there, staring at you blankly. The characters in Stalker 2 actually look and feel alive, and it also appears to be fully voice acted. Speaking of feeling alive, the A-Life system is coming back for Stalker 2. This means the NPCs will travel the zone, eat, sleep, engage in combat, and entertain themselves with zero interaction from the player. If you wanted, you could pick any random Stalker you encounter and simply follow them around. They'll hang out and talk to other Stalkers and share stories of their adventures, then set out to go fight mutants or find valuable artifacts. They may be successful and live for a long time, traveling all over the zone whether you witness it happening or not. Or they may die to the zone and leave behind their legacy in the form of their inventory being full of the various things they've collected since they've been in the zone. This kind of AI makes the zone truly feel alive, and can make for some very interesting stories when you discover the crushed body of a Stalker you've crossed paths with on a few occasions while getting supplies, and you try to piece together his story based on what he had on him and what notes might be in his PDA. As far as the main storyline, I'm not really sure what to expect. I feel like this time around the story will be much easier to follow and be a little bit more clear. When I first played Stalker back in the late 2000s, I didn't really know what was going on until I had researched it years later. But I have a feeling Stalker 2 will have a fully fleshed out story, which I hope is a good one. If I had any wishes, I just hope that they stay away from tropes or overused plot lines, and that the main story feels fresh, unique, and captivating. I'm not entirely sure when Stalker 2 is going to be released, but thankfully it looks like it's going to happen quite soon rather than at the end of the year. And when it does release, I'll be your source for Stalker 2 lore and gameplay content. But now I want to hear what you think. What are your expectations for the long-awaited sequel? Do you think it's going to be good, bad, or something else? Let me know in the comments below. I'll have new videos soon, but until then, I'm Jeff with UL Gaming. Good luck out there.